Welcome to the first episode of our series on the war that was supposed to end all wars. But from the very beginning, nothing went as planned. The summer of 1914, Europe was a powder keg with a burning fuse. The spark in Sarajevo had ignited a fire that would consume the continent. But the leaders of the great nations didn't see the coming catastrophe. They only saw their plans. Perfect plans on paper, destined to shatter against the reality of mud and fire. Today, we will recount the first two acts of this tragedy. Act 1. Illusions. Act 2. Annihilation. At the center of our story are two grand strategies, two dreams of swift victory, the German Schlieffen Plan and the French Plan 17. They collided in a series of savage battles along the frontiers, in what history remembers as the Battle of the Frontiers. And from this collision, something unexpected was born, the Miracle on the Marne. Let us begin with the architect of Germany's fate. At the dawn of the century, Germany had a nightmare. It was a geographical and strategic nightmare. To the west stood their perpetual foe, France. To the east lay the Russian Colossus with its endless army. Fighting a war on two fronts simultaneously was a recipe for national suicide. The solution to this nightmare was called the Schlieffen Plan. Devised in 1905 by the German chief of the General Staff, Count Alfred von Schlieffen, this plan was a masterpiece of abstract military thought. It was a giant gamble, a roulette wheel loaded with millions of human lives. The idea was simple in geometry, but maddeningly complex in execution. Russia, due to its backwardness, would take at least 6 weeks to mobilize its vast army. Germany had to use these 6 weeks to eliminate France. But not with a frontal assault. The Franco-German border was heavily fortified. Instead, the German army would violate the neutrality of Luxembourg and Belgium, sweep across the northern French plain like a tsunami wave, pass to the west of Paris, and then wheel around to destroy the French army from the rear, trapping it against the Vosges Mountains. One single, giant, encircling blow. 6 weeks, and France would surrender. Then, all forces would entrain east to crush Russia. But this plan had a backbone, the right wing. According to Schlieffen's calculations, this wing had to be extraordinarily strong. It would comprise the vast bulk of the German army because it had the farthest distance to travel. It was a single steel fist meant to knock on the gates of Paris. But Schlieffen retired, and in 1914, the plan was inherited by another man, Helmut von Moltke. Moltke was the nephew of the famous general who had defeated the French in 1870. But he did not have his granduncle's nerves of steel. He was a doubting man, trembling at the thought of Germans losing territory in Alsace-Lorraine or the Russians penetrating too quickly into Prussia. And so, Moltke committed what historians call the first crime of the war. He mutilated the plan. Fearing the worst, he pulled troops from the decisive right wing and sent them to the left wing and the Eastern Front. he cut the steel fist in half. About 1.5 million soldiers, the very force meant to decide the war's fate, was shifted and weakened. This decision by one indecisive man was the seed of Germany's disaster. On the other side of the border, the French were not idle. They had lost Alsace-Lorraine in the War of 1870, and this wound had never healed. The entire French military doctrine was built on the idea of revenge. They had their own plan, Plan 17. At the head of the French army was General Joseph Joffre, a large, calm man who looked more like a well-fed warehouse manager than a strategist. But he possessed an unshakable belief. And he believed in one thing, offensive à outrance, the offensive to the uttermost. The French philosophy was simple. Élan vital, the vital spirit of the attack. They believed that the spirit of the French soldier, his courage, would overcome any technological obstacle. A young French lieutenant named Charles de Gaulle would later write that all the bravery in the world cannot prevail against machine gun fire. But in August 1914, no one wanted to hear that voice. Plan 17 envisioned a powerful French offensive into the heart of Alsace-Lorraine. They expected the Germans to be weak there. But in reality, thanks to Moltke's changes, the Germans were there, waiting, and well fortified. On August 7th, as the world was still reeling from the speed of the declarations of war, the French made their first move. The French 7th Corps entered Alsace. They occupied Mulhouse without resistance. The joy in France was immense. "We are driving them out!" the newspapers cheered. But it was a false joy. 2 days later, the Germans counterattacked, and the French retreated in humiliation. But Joffre was undeterred. This was merely a prelude. The main event was yet to come. August 22nd, 1914, a date the French would like to forget, but one we must remember. In the dense forests of the Ardennes and on the hills of Lorraine, hell was unleashed. Joffre had given the order for a general offensive. The French 3rd and 4th Armies hurled themselves into the attack in the Ardennes, while to the south, the 1st and 2nd Armies attacked in Lorraine. They marched under the summer sun, in their blue and red uniforms, which made them perfect targets against the green of the fields. Their officers, with white gloves and swords drawn, led the assault. It was like a painting from the last century colliding with the reality of the 20th. And that reality was called the machine gun. The Germans, positioned on the commanding heights and behind hastily dug earthworks, let the French approach. Then, the silence was broken by the dry chattering of the Maxim guns and the roar of howitzers. The French fell like wheat before a scythe. Wave after wave, they rose and charged forward, and wave after wave, they were left lying in the fields. What happened that day was unprecedented. On August 22, 1914, the French army suffered the single greatest one-day loss in its entire long history. More than 27,000 French soldiers were killed within a single 24-hour period. Not wounded, not missing, killed. To put it in perspective, that is more than the total number of American soldiers killed during the entire Vietnam War, in one single day. And for what gains? For a few hundred meters of ground, they would lose again the next day. Offensive à outrance had turned into a slaughterhouse. While France mourned its sons in the east, another threat was materializing in the north. The Schlieffen Plan, though crippled, was in motion. On August 4th, the Germans had stepped onto neutral Belgian soil. The Belgians, a small army, fought with a ferocity that surprised the Germans and delayed them for a few precious days around the fortified city of Liège. But eventually, numerical superiority and the Germans' heavy artillery, including the giant Big Bertha howitzers, did their work. Meanwhile, the French general Charles Lanrezac, commander of the French Fifth Army on the left flank, saw the writing on the wall. He sent message after message to Joffre. The Germans are coming from the north. There are tens of thousands of them. We must prepare. But Joffre was still fixated on his offensive in Lorraine. He called Lanrezac a defeatist and paid him no heed. Finally, on August 15th, when the reports became undeniable, Joffre allowed Lanrezac to move his army northwest to position himself behind the Sambre River near the Belgian town of Charleroi. But it was almost too late. On August 21st, General Bülow's German Second Army began its assault across the Sambre River, initiating the Battle of Charleroi. Lanrezac's Frenchmen, exhausted from their march and without sufficient artillery, tried to hold the line. For 2 days, the battle raged fiercely. On the French right flank, a young and aggressive general named Louis Franchet d'Espèrey counterattacked and halted the German advance, saving the army from complete encirclement. But the pressure was unbearable. On August 23rd, Lanrezac, seeing the danger, made the difficult decision to withdraw his army. That same day, August 23rd, at the town of Mons, about 60 kilometers to the west, the British Expeditionary Force fired its first shots. These were professional soldiers, the Old Contemptibles, as they would later be called. They were few in number, but they were excellent marksmen. Facing them was General von Kluck's German First Army. The British positioned themselves along the Mons Canal. When the Germans attacked in dense columns, confident they would sweep them aside, the British rifles opened fire. The rate of fire was so high that the Germans thought they were facing machine guns. The British mauled them. But they, too, were far too few. Threatened with encirclement, the British commander, Sir John French, ordered a retreat. The Great Retreat had begun. Throughout the end of August, an endless river of humanity, French, British, Belgians, flowed southward. Behind them, like a black tide, advanced the German war machine. They marched over 40 kilometers a day in their black boots, singing songs of war. Paris was now only 40 kilometers away. The French government was evacuated to Bordeaux. The capital was preparing for a siege. The world seemed to be collapsing. But in the midst of this collapse, in Paris, one retired elderly general kept his cool. Joseph Gallieni, the military governor of Paris, saw what no one else did. Studying the maps of German movements, he noticed something. The German general von Kluck, commander of the First Army, was making a fatal error. Tired from the pursuit, and believing the French army was shattered, Kluck decided not to follow the plan. Instead of staying west of Paris, he wheeled his army southeast to pursue the retreating French Fifth Army. In doing so, he exposed his own right flank. He created a 50-kilometer gap between his First Army and the following German Second Army. On September 3rd, Gallieni saw this gap. He telephoned Joffre. At first, Joffre, stunned by the retreat, didn't believe him. But Gallieni was insistent. "We must attack," he shouted. Finally, on September 4th, Joffre made the decision that would change the course of the war. He ordered a general counteroffensive along the Marne River. The First Battle of the Marne began on September 5, 1914.
It was a chaotic, bloody, and desperate battle.
Gallieni's hastily assembled French Sixth Army attacked Kluck's exposed flank. Kluck was forced to halt his pursuit and turn to meet this new threat. Between him and the German Second Army, the gap widened even further. And it was into this very gap, on September 6th, that the British Expeditionary Force and elements of the French Fifth Army inserted themselves. It is here that one of the most famous episodes of the war occurs. To get reinforcements to the front line as quickly as possible, Gallieni did something unprecedented. He ordered the mobilization of all the taxis in Paris. About 600 of the city's black taxicabs were assembled in the square at Les Invalides. They loaded soldiers and drove through the night to the front, dodging military convoys. This move, more symbolic than decisive, became legendary as the Taxis of the Marne. It showed the determination of the French to defend their capital. After several days of fierce fighting, on September 9th, Moltke, from his headquarters in Luxembourg, where he was following the battle remotely without a clear picture, was seized by panic. He sent an officer, Hensch, to inspect the front. Hensch saw what no general wanted to admit. The two German armies were in danger of being encircled. On his own authority, he ordered a general retreat. The German army fell back about 65 kilometers, digging in behind the Aisne River on the commanding heights. It was not defeated, but it was forced to retreat. The Schlieffen Plan had failed. France had not been beaten in 6 weeks. When the dust settled on the Battle of the Marne, the world counted the costs. The French had lost about 250,000 men. The British, over 12,000. The Germans, nearly 300,000. In less than a month, over 500,000 people were dead. But these figures don't tell the true story of what had happened. An entire world had been destroyed. The belief that war was a short, heroic adventure had been shattered. The idea that spirit and courage could overcome technology was gone. What remained? 2 armies, exhausted, facing each other along a line hundreds of kilometers long. The Germans had retreated to the heights of the Aisne and began to dig in. The French and British, facing them, did the same. They dug to protect themselves from bullets and shells. No one called it trench warfare yet. They thought it was a temporary halt, but they were wrong. It was the beginning of a prison of mud that would hold them captive for another 4 years. The Battle of the Marne saved Paris, but it gave the world a new nightmare. What began as a war of movement ended by turning into a bloody stalemate. And there, in those first trenches, atop the corpses of hundreds of thousands of young men, the 20th century truly began. Thus ends the first act of the Great War, an act filled with grand illusions and terrible realities. In our next episode, we will move east, where another legendary general was writing history with the blood of the Russian army. We will recount the Battle of Tannenberg, where Germany proved it could win battles but was losing the war. Until then, remember, this is not distant history. It is a warning.